Hey everyone, and welcome back to Brian's Horror Movies for Life, and welcome to this Jaws Orca Franchise Review video as part of my current series. In this video, we're going to take a look at the first sequel to the Jaws franchise, and that is Jaws 2, which I have as part of this DVD 3-pack for the Jaws sequels. So yeah, taking a look at that one right there. Jaws 2. So yeah, let's just go ahead and get into it. Jaws 2 is a 1978 American horror thriller film directed by Jano Schwark and written by Howard Sackler and Carl Gottlieb. It is the sequel to Steven Spielberg's Jaws and the second installment in the Jaws franchise. The film stars Roy Scheider as Police Chief Martin Brody with Lorraine Gary and Murray Hamilton and Jeffrey Kramer reprising their respective roles as Martin's wife Ellen Brody, Mayor Larry Vaughn, and Deputy Hendricks. The plot concerns Police Chief Martin Brody suspecting another great white shark is terrorizing the fictional seaside resort community of Amity Island following a series of incidents and disappearances, and his suspicions are eventually proven true. So, 4 years after the killing of the great white shark, a new hotel opens on Amity Island, while another great white shark kills two scuba divers photographing the wreckage of the Orca. Their camera, which took pictures during the attack, is later recovered by Deputy Jeff Hendricks. The next day, the shark kills Terry, a water skier, before attacking Diane Hetfield, the pilot of the boat, who attempts self-defense by using a gas tank and a flare gun, but the boat explodes, killing her and severely burning the shark's face. An orca carcass is found on the beach. Police Chief Martin Brody believes that a shark is responsible. He then finds floating debris from the destroyed speedboat and Diane's burnt remains. Brody attempts to contact oceanographer Matt Hooper for help, but he is away on a research expedition in Antarctica. When Brody raises his concerns, Mayor Larry Vaughn urges him not to press the issue, concerned about Brody's mental state and worried about jeopardizing the island's tourism and new development plans. Concerned for his family's safety, Brody forbids his 17-year-old son, Mike, from going out on the water. So yeah, that's kind of the setup, the premise of the beginning of Jaws 2. As far as the cast goes, you have Roy Scheider as Police Chief Martin Brody, Lorraine Gary as Ellen Brody, Murray Hamilton as Mayor Larry Vaughn, Joseph Mascolo as Len Peterson, Jeffrey Kramer as Deputy Jeff Hendricks, Colin Wilcox as Dr. Elkins, Ann Dusenberry as Tina Wilcox, and Mark Gruner as Mike Brody. So yeah, let's just set up the premise and the cast for the 1978 follow-up movie Jaws 2. This is really a hard movie to judge because it really depends on what context you put it in. I don't think it's a great sequel to the original. However, I'm not sure any movie would have been a great sequel to the original because I don't think you can capture that kind of magic and that kind of just everything worked in that movie. That being said, this is certainly not a bad movie, and as sequels go, I think it's pretty decent. I'll be fair. I think it's a pretty decent sequel, if there had to be one for the original Jaws, which I don't think there needed to be, but it is what it is. So let's just go ahead and talk about the things that I liked about Jaws 2. And you have to start with Roy Scheider as Brody. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with the fact that he did not get along with the director. Actually, this movie, first of all, I should mention, this movie actually had a different director that started with it. And it was actually, I think it actually had a different premise. And they brought in Carl Gottlieb, who wrote the first movie, to come back in and do rewrites on this movie. And then they replaced the original director, who wasn't much of a, I guess they learned that he wasn't much of like an action film director. That really wasn't his forte, which my question is who hired him in the first place. But anyway, they brought in Jano Schwark, who ended up being the director on the revised Jaws 2 movie. And him and Roy Scheider didn't get along at all. I mean, it actually got physical at one point during the movie. Of course, Roy Scheider really didn't want to do a Jaws sequel, but he was scheduled to do The Deer Hunter and then dropped out of that. And then because he breached his contract, they basically said, well, if you do Jaws 2, we'll let bygones be bygones. We'll call it good, basically. And so he did it, but I would say his heart wasn't really into it, but you wouldn't know that by his acting, which is why this is a pro for me. But it really wasn't a good experience for him. I know he did interviews after this where he wasn't, until years later, where he admitted that it was a reputable film, but he was contracted to do it. It wasn't a choice that he made. But yeah, he didn't. Him and the director Jano Schwartz did not get along at all. But like I said, you wouldn't know it by watching the movie. Roy Scheider's definitely one of the very best things about Jaws 2 as Brody. Despite his reservations about doing the sequel, I thought he delivered a great performance, stepping right back into Brody's shoes and really not missing a beat. I mean, it didn't feel like there was any time between the making of Jaws and Jaws 2 or like the movie time between the characters from Jaws to Jaws 2. And I think he's easily the best part of the movie. He has some different things he has to do, like being kind of overly obsessive. Like he gives one speech to the town hall and the mayor talking about, people telling me I don't know what a shark looks like. He goes, you better do something about this one because I've seen him up close and I don't intend to go through that hell again. He's just really good, really convincing in his performance. So yeah, Roy Scheider as Brody is definitely, this movie wouldn't be nearly as good as it is, which is pretty good, if Roy Scheider wasn't part of it. That's just a fact. So Roy Scheider's presence in this movie, I think he was an underrated actor. Rest in peace to him. I really do. Everything that he was in, he just really knocked it out of the park for me. So, also, I think the camera work as it relates to the shark and the action sequences, which were directed by Schwark, and that was really, you could tell as a director, he wasn't Steven Spielberg by any means. Not that you're going to find that again. But they hired a director that was more of an action director, and he did well with the action pieces of this movie. But I thought the camera work of like seeing the shark go, the point of view of the shark from under the water to coming out of the water. There's a couple times that happens. One with Tina and her boyfriend. Tina played by Ann Dusenberry. I don't know what her boyfriend's, the character's name was or the actor, but he basically gets thrown over as the shark attacks their sailboat, and then the shark actually takes him on a ride right up to the boat where he hits his head on it. And but that was really the part where you could see the shark rise up as they're sitting in the boat, and I thought that was really, really well directed and really solid. I especially like the water skier sequence that happens earlier in the movie with some of the POV shark shots, and as I said, going from underwater POV to coming out of the water. So then the eyes are obviously above the water. So yeah, I'd say Jano Schwartz is no Steven Spielberg, but I thought he did well with the action sequences and having to do with the kind of presenting the shark or unleashing the shark, if you will. Now, you do see a lot more of the shark in this movie than the first movie. That's not necessarily better or worse. It just is what it is. The director, Schwartz, said that at this point, after the first movie, there was really no reason not to show the shark more. That, and I'm sure the shark probably just worked better for him from a production standpoint. But I'm not saying it's better or worse. I kind of understand why they show it more because, like he said, you've already seen the first movie, so it's not like you don't know a shark is part of this movie. Although some suggested that they still could have not shown it right away. As soon as they do, which is right after the opening sequences with these two divers down exploring the Orca. But it's kind of splitting hairs. I thought the shark looked good. I'll say that. Given the fact that you see a lot more of them, I didn't think it looked mechanical or terrible or anything. I thought the shark was convincing. I especially liked that with the water skier incident, and as I mentioned in the synopsis, the gal driving the boat ends up dumping gasoline on herself and the boat and the shark, and then shoots a flare at the shark and sets him on fire. So the shark throughout the rest of the movie's got he's charred on the side of his face here. It's got black char and burn marks. And I thought that was kind of unique and kind of a a different way to separate the shark from the shark in the first movie, which obviously didn't have that. So I like that whole sequence. I think you have another really solid score by John Williams, who surprisingly came back. I think it had just enough variation in the score from the first movie while still hitting the iconic beats that we know of when it comes to Jaws. And so, yeah, it's not as good as the first movie, and you'll hear me a lot as I talk about this movie, comparing it to the first movie, which maybe that's a mistake. But John Williams' score is solid. And then another thing I really like is Brody's character in this movie. You know, in the first movie, he's as surprised to learn about a shark attack as anybody else. So he's not quite sure how to handle it. But obviously, having gone through the first movie and everything with the shark, he's definitely got a little bit more of an obsession and PTSD in this movie. And that kind of comes out to the mayor and even his wife and kind of the townspeople, which is why he ends up losing his job and getting fired. He has a thing on the beach where he thinks the shark's approaching swimmers, and it happens to be bluefish, like a large school of bluefish. And he pulls out his gun and starts shooting at the water, and that's enough to kind of upset everybody. So he's kind of in a different place in this movie than he was the first movie, and I appreciate that bit of character arc and direction there. Also, when he gets fired, you know, talking to his wife about, you know, the dialogue, I've never been fired before. I mean, yeah, when I was 17, when I was a kid, but again, Roy Scheider's great. But I just thought that what they did with their character, what they did with his character, I thought was good, and it kind of gave him, you know, kind of put him in a different spot than he was in the first movie. Even though a lot of parts of this movie is sort of a rehash of the first movie, they had a little something different with his character, which I liked there. Although I have to admit, I'm not sure why the mayor, and to the mayor's credit, I don't like that they cut out a scene in this Jaws 2 here in this movie where they take a vote on whether or not to let Brody go, and the mayor's the only one that backs him, which that makes sense because the mayor, obviously, he knows that Brody saved their asses in the first movie, having to do with the shark. But in this movie, they cut that scene, so it looks like the mayor's with the rest of them. Like, you've gone off the edge. It's not a shark. It's just we don't want to screw up our tourism business. Which you would think, given everything that happened on that island, still they would at least take a second look at what he's saying and not just think that he's lost his mind and it's not possible for there to be another great white shark. But you know, it is what it is. So those are kind of my pros. I also do like how the movie starts. It's got a different score than the first movie, which was the da-da-da-da-da. This one's a little bit more of a lighter tone, as it shows the fish going back and forth with the Jaws 2 credit. And then I like the fact that the divers are exploring the Orca from the end of the first movie, which, of course, the Orca went down. And now it's 4 years later, and these divers are looking at it. I think it gives the movie good connectivity to the first movie. So they're not like... This movie does a good job with that, as far as you remember a lot from the first movie. Like, you could forget, because the first movie's so good. But what I'm saying is they do a good job of the connective tissue and not just forgetting anything or ignoring it. And they do a pretty good job with that. So, and I like that they were exploring the Orca at the bottom of the sea there. So as far as cons go, the biggest con to Jaws 2 is it's not the original Jaws. And that's not really its fault, because I don't think it could be, as I mentioned earlier. I just think that movie had such magic. It had Spielberg directing. It had Richard Dreyfuss, Robert Shaw, along with Roy Scheider. Just everything worked about it. The fact that the shark didn't work, so they couldn't show much of it. I think that it was a little bit more... there's a little bit more thriller aspect to that movie, where this feels more like this is almost more of a slasher movie, with the shark being the killer. As opposed to not having quite the tension and the suspense thriller aspects that the original did. One of the biggest problems, though, is... we have to spend too many times with these teenage characters, which is Mike, Brody's son, who's 17 now, and all of his friends. The movie focuses a lot on these teenage characters. It's kind of Brody and the teenage characters, and when Brody's on screen, it's great. When the teenage characters are on screen, that's when the phone goes up and I start doing my scrolling. No. but the characters, first of all, there's too many teenage characters. There's like 8 or 9 of them. They don't really give them anything that separates them, any sort of characterization. So therefore, we don't really care about any of them. And I think it also, they do a lot of this. These characters, these teenagers, do a lot of sailing. It's all about sailing the second half of the movie, which is fine. It kind of gives them something to do to be on the water when they're not kids and you're not going to like just swim. But I kind of felt like it dragged down the pacing of the film overall. These teenagers out sailing and stuff, and yeah, it just didn't work for me. That was when you go from the first movie that has Brody and Quint and Hooper in the third act of the movie trying to kill the shark, and in this movie it's just Brody going to rescue these kids. It just doesn't have the same impact at all. How they killed the shark is fine. I mean, I'm not, it's interesting that Brody didn't suffer any injury from that, having a shark literally get electrocuted when he's like this far from him. But it was different. They didn't blow him up again. They electrocuted him this time, and I was fine with that. Yeah, guys, I can't really. The thing is about this movie is it's a competently made movie. I think it just doesn't have the magic or the same impact that the first movie had, especially in terms of the characters and the dialogue, aside from Brody. And I think that's where Janot Schwartz kind of came up short. Action sequences and stuff with the shark is well directed, but when it comes to these other characters, outside of Brody, the dialogue isn't always great. Some of the acting is really bad. Nobody's worse than his son, Mike. I forget the actor. Oh, I guess it's Mark Gruner. His acting is so bad, man. He tries to do like this over dramatic acting, like when he's going out sailing, and his younger brother, who was frankly better than he was in this movie, he goes, "Are you going out sailing?" And he's like, "Maybe." And he's like, "Take me with you." No. I mean, it's just so bad. And a lot of the other actors, the young teenagers, aren't that great. Although I will point out a couple of people. You have Donna Wilkes. I forget the character's name in the movie. Is it Jackie? That's it. And then you also have Keith Gordon from Christine, one of my favorite John Carpenter movies. Those two are good, and you obviously recognize them from other things. But everybody else, especially Mike, though, oh man. But anyway, that's my rant on that. But yeah, I can't really. There's not really anything other than that, though, other than the directing of those characters and not giving those characters anything to do, and those teenage characters not being able to act. There's not really anything else that I can like rip the movie apart for, other than the fact that it's not the original. It doesn't have any of the charm or the magic. Thrills of the original. Like I said, it's more of a slasher movie. Teenagers out at sea in this case, and the shark is the killer. And they don't try to hide him or anything, like kind of like Michael Myers in the first Halloween movie. In the second movie, they don't hide him, and that's the same as this. That's not to say that it's a bad movie, though. Again, I can't reiterate that. I think they did about as well as they could for the most part. There's some scenes, like I said, that voting scene I wish they would have kept in the movie, and a couple other scenes they cut out. The helicopter's there to rescue the kids. I wish they would have showed more of it, like under the water when the shark's coming after them. They cut that. Luckily, they are in the special features, though. Right there, the bonus features are all pretty much related to Jaws 2 there. So I still can see him. I just can't see him in the context of the movie. But I don't know, guys. All that being said, go ahead and comment down below your guys' thoughts on Jaws 2. Do you think it's a good sequel? I would say it's a pretty good sequel. I'm not going to say it's a great sequel, because I don't think it is when you're talking about the original Jaws movie. But I will say, if you compare it to all the shark movies that have come out since then, so in my lifetime, because I was actually born in 1978 when this movie came out, I would say that it's pretty high on that list if you take the original Jaws out of it. But you can't do that because it's got the name Jaws with a 2 behind it. So I'm going to give Jaws 2 a 6.5 out of 10. I think it's a watchable movie. I think it's a fine sequel. Will I ever watch it over the original? No chance. But that being said, I will watch it. It's a decent sequel. So 6.5 out of 10 for Jaws 2 from 1978. As I said, comment down below any thoughts you guys have on this sequel and how you think it follows up to the original. I didn't mention it either, but I do like that they're back at the same location with a lot of the same townspeople. That kind of keeps up to the continuity with the first movie as well. I just wanted to slip that in there. But with that being said, this video's ran longer than I was hoping. But please like this video, hit the notification bell, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. It would really help me out for the future content on my channel going forward. But with that being said, thank you for watching. Hope you're doing well. But as always, stay scared. Bye.